Had a kind of a rough game there the last time out. I know you talked about on the radio show picking out some particular plays and showing him some different things he can do. He was kind of a marked man, it felt like. They weren't leaving his side. Just what are the things he can do to get back? You know, he was playing really good basketball in the 4 or 5 games prior to that.
Yeah, well, I think, getting back to doing what was working in that stretch. And certainly the big thing for him is, I think, slowing down when the ball's in his hands. We want him to be really aggressive at times. In stretches this season, he's played sped up. It's what we just got done working on out on the court, was just catch it, slow down a little bit, use your fakes, use your jabs, be more physical, and he will. This doesn't have to be right like something that lasts and lingers. I think he is working really hard and has been. That's why he's been playing at the level he's been playing at, and he'll continue to do that. He didn't have his best game. He knows that, but like good players do, he'll respond, and we got great trust in him to do that.
2 days after the radio show, is there an update, I guess, on Kristoff? Has he been able to practice? Has he been cleared? What's your thought, I guess, about where that's headed?
Yeah, hopeful, I think, is the best way to describe it. No determination yet as far as status on Saturday. We try to give him as much rest. Him and a couple other guys, honestly, give him as much rest as we could this week. Obviously, we're now 2 days out, so we got to start, being more specific about what we're doing on the court. We'll see. I don't know what his availability looks like today. I'm sure if he is available, it'll be in a limited capacity for today. And, big thing for us is obviously trying to do everything we can to help him be ready for Saturday. And I don't know, Steve, just to be honest with you, it's too early to tell.
I was looking at his stats, and he's already got 40 assists on the season. That's the most for an Ohio State big man since Caleb's junior season here. His ability to distribute and kind of connect your offense. I know we talked about that a lot in the preseason, but how has that lined up with what you thought it might look like, and how important has that been for your overall offense? That even if he's not scoring 20, he's contributing a lot.
Yeah, it's really important, Adam, and I think, for us, I think there's been times where, he probably deserves a few more assists because there was a stretch where we weren't shooting the ball like we were capable of. And then there's other times where, I think he needs to be more aggressive when he gets the ball deeper in the paint. So his playmaking for us, though, is really critical. And, it gives us a completely different element offensively, one that we feel is kind of our best offense when we got, like you saw against Oregon, where we kind of have 4 or 5 guys scoring double figures and those points being, somewhat evenly distributed. I think that's a good recipe for our offense, and he's a big catalyst for that.
And his ability as well to get to the free throw line. He leads you in fouls drawn per 40 minutes. How much is that factored into when you're figuring out how you're going to attack a team, that you can get him to the line and he shoots it at a high rate?
Yeah, well, he's at his size, he's a really hard guard because of his ability to put the ball on the ground. And, he plays with tremendous poise in the paint. So we got to continue to put him in situations where he can use that to his advantage. That's a big part of how our offense is built, and, that spacing and the 5-out principles we play with. So he's done a good job, taking advantage of those spots, and has to continue to do so.
A home game on a Saturday afternoon against a big-time opponent. How much are you looking forward to what this environment could be like Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, really, hope that it's a big advantage for us. We see the impact of, home court advantage a lot when we're on the road. And some of the venues, obviously ours is significantly larger than some of the other ones we see in the league. But, those who are here on Saturday, we need their passion, their energy, and everything they got to help us, be our best and get an advantage. That's part of being in this league. Like, having a great home court advantage matters, and so hopefully we got that on Saturday.
And what do you think about the portal changing and the window being a little bit shorter as well?
Yeah, the window being shorter makes sense. I think there's going to be this lull period for a majority of the country that you got to figure out how to manage, as you wait for the national championship game to conclude. So that'll be, it'll be interesting how that kind of plays out. But, I think for us, shorter window's good. We're hoping that, there's kind of some more legislation come through and get some answers on some other things that'll help determine how we build out the roster. But, we want to certainly be aggressive in the portal. It'll always be part of our roster building. It won't necessarily be the only part or biggest part, but it'll definitely be a part of it.
What other legislation are you waiting for?
Yeah, well, I think, and thankfully, football's clock as to the portal closing and stuff puts some pressure on things like the case surrounding a fifth year of eligibility. I think that's one. I think, they're coming out with more interpretations on NIL and how that works. Time will tell if that puts us at a disadvantage or advantage. But, I think clarity is important. So those things are great. There's other things they're talking about that, logistically how your program operates, I think are positives. Some deregulation in general in that is a good thing. But the fifth year is obviously a huge deal because that's going to significantly impact how rosters are put together. And then the clarity on the NIL, third party, those things, as we get more clarity on that, it'll impact things.
The injuries. So we're just talking about Kristoff, but Kristoff was dealing with the foot beforehand. I know you don't want to make excuses about injuries, but they certainly play a part throughout the course of a season. Like, how difficult is it to manage that when it seems like some things may pile up a little bit on you? And it happened a little bit last year too, just trying to navigate that whole situation when you do have these impactful injuries.
Yeah, I think you got to be ready to adjust. And certainly, not to be cliche, but next man up mentality is important, right? Like, it's, guys who are longing for greater opportunity when they have it, injuries are part of opportunities growing and changing. So being ready for those, that's why we talk a lot, really all season, off season, all season about how roles can change throughout the course of a year. And, being ready, staying ready is so critical. So it's something we try to prepare for, to some degree in the off season. But it's still, you feel it, but Big Ten doesn't give you a week off, right? If you're dealing with injuries, you got to get ready for the next game. And I think our injuries, we felt the most we've felt them this year. We felt in the second half against Washington. Our front court got depleted in a major way, really quickly. And then you add the fact that I think Devin just was a complete warrior and wasn't himself, but was battling through just, some pain. And Yvonne played the longest stretch he's probably ever played in his career, and you could see it. He got a little fatigued, and we're asking a freshman to do so much. So we felt that in the second half. We did our best to adjust and make the most of what we could and how we attacked and the pace we played at in things, how we subbed. But, I think we'll see what Saturday looks like. We're preparing for all possible scenarios, over the next 48 hours to just make sure that whoever's ready to go on Saturday, we put them in the best position to be successful.
You talked about guys coming off the bench, wanting to be more aggressive and things like that. When they get a bigger opportunity, whether it's starting or more minutes, does that somewhat happen naturally? That like, hey, the opportunity's here. I have this chance to seize it more so than, hey, I'm getting a few minutes here and there off the bench and coach is telling me to be more aggressive, but I'm also trying to, play within myself.
Yeah, I think it's human nature that if you perceive maybe a bigger opportunity in your mind, it forces you maybe to be a little more aggressive. It's certainly a challenge asking guys who, maybe are playing limited minutes to be aggressive, but I think we're starting to break through there. What Gabe did against Oregon, and I thought even against Washington, he was touching the paint more than he had, in games leading to that. I think we saw, Taysom in his minutes, get off a couple shots, get a steal. Like that's the type of mentality, right, that we're looking for. We've had games where guys, we've had guys off our bench play a combined 20, 25 minutes and not take a shot. So I think we've kind of turned the corner in that regard. Guys are in a better place as to, understanding what it means to be more aggressive in your opportunity. But I think it's natural when you may perceive your opportunity to be bigger coming up, that it maybe makes it a little easier to do that.
2-game stretch at home. You mentioned the Saturday game, but just having back-to-back home games after being on the road, an opportunity maybe to sort of stack some things here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't look too far ahead, and our entire focus is on UCLA right now and playing as good as we can for as long as we possibly can against, a really good team. And, I think being at home provides certain advantages, but, we got to get this environment in a place where it can really help us, and we can feel that on the scoreboard even because, I think all that stuff plays a part. But we haven't gotten off to the starts we needed to at home. That's like we had to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, well, that's on us. Why are we not doing that? And I think we've responded really well when you consider, even the road start at Rutgers, and you look at some of our starts before our last 2 games, well, we got off to better starts, and we got to carry that over. That's important. So excited to be home. I fought hard to get more weekend home games, so excited to have one of those. It's a huge stage. You're now in January. You get those home weekend games on CBS or those big time networks. It's fun, and our guys are ready. I mean, I think they're looking forward to the opportunity. Huge opportunity as we have a ton left. But make no mistake, like this is a major opportunity right in front of us that, we want to make sure we are playing as well as we possibly can, as long as we possibly can to get the result we want.
Yeah, with the almost week off and with the travel and the injuries and everything, did you switch up kind of your, the weekly routine, practice-wise at all in preparation for this game?
Yeah, we had to make some tweaks and adjustments, and with the intent of giving our players the best chance to feel their best and feel their most ready on Saturday. I don't think you can necessarily reduce the preparation, but you can alter what that preparation looks like and how you go about it. So we've had to, I think there was a plan going into the West Coast trip as to what this week would look like, and we had to adjust, kind of what that plan looked like coming out of it. And that's, I guess, what you got to do, right? You just got to kind of stay fluid as to evaluate where your team is and how to get your team ready to go.
Yeah. And then also I remember, I think it was after the Mount St. Mary's game, you said Matthew was practicing really well. And you got him in rotation early in the second half, I believe. And I just wanted to ask, how's he coming along? How's his progression been?
Yeah, he's handled things with great maturity. And, I think he is progressing. I think we've kind of reached a point in the season where I've decided to shrink the rotation a little bit. But that is not an indication on him doing something wrong. And in fact, he's in the gym, working extra, getting individual work in. He's practicing hard. He's got some things that I think he and I have talked about. He's got to really focus on improving and, stay ready and all of that stuff. And I think he's handled it really well. And, that will, if the opportunity, comes, I think that will help him be ready for it. So no complaints, no issues. It's just more of a coach's decision to kind of shrink the rotation a little bit. And, but we'll see how kind of availability and injuries and all that stuff plays a factor. Like I tell all our guys, that can change in a moment.
Jake, is it more of a challenge to build depth in the offseason in this era where you do have the portal and guys can come and go? Is it harder to build depth than it maybe used to be? Getting a backup or getting guys who can can step in and not let the level fall as much?
I think the portals played a major role in certainly roster management and construction, but nothing's played a bigger role in the changes than NIL. And it's such a major factor. Certainly, I think, stars or front of the rotation guys get a lot of the attention in NIL, but how NIL impacts, the entire team is important. And the landscape is constantly changing. Who you can recruit to bring in and be a part of your team is changing. So we're working tirelessly to stay on the forefront of all available options and be ready to pivot if things do change. So clarity will help everybody in college basketball. I think we're taking steps towards getting some of that. But how you construct a roster now is different than it was 4 years ago.
And with when it comes to Brandon, you've said it's just kind of indefinite with him. How has he progressed since the injury, and is there any sort of updated timeline on him?
Yeah, I think it's too early to maybe give like a specific window. It's going to be an extended period of time. What that kind of target date is, I think a lot's going to determine how the next couple weeks go. But he's working really hard to, be back as quickly as he can. This isn't a 2-week thing. Like it's going to be extended, and our hope is we can just shrink that time as much as possible. Obviously, in a manner that's safe for him, but we'd love to get him back as quickly as we can, and he's working as hard as he can to get back.
With the uncertainty in the front court, could this change Devin Royal's offensive role going forward, of playing less in the perimeter and more as a big?
Yeah, well, I think Devin is who Devin is, and kind of regardless of who else is on the court with him. We've, even as a quote unquote, small forward or perimeter player, we've utilized him inside. We've utilized him in space to drive. We've utilized his ability to shoot, and so I think what it really changes is if he's now our second biggest guy on the court, it impacts things defensively. Offensively, through set actions, we can put guys in advantages, but our flow offense, a lot of the pieces are interchangeable. So the big thing we tell our guys to do is play to their strengths. Now, as he gets guarded by different guys, it could impact how we attack. But I think outside of that, he just got to keep playing to his strengths, and he's doing a good job with that.
Just to ask about UCLA, coming off a pretty impressive win at Penn State, and I think Perry and Bilodeau both had season-high games or really, really good games. Just what do you see with UCLA in general, those two guys, what you're going to have to do to kind of contain them as well?
Yeah, well, Bilodeau's an established great player in this league, right? And I think Perry has really emerged for them. He was a gifted scorer coming out of high school and is playing with a lot of confidence. Certainly, that was evident in last night's game. What Dent does for them and how he makes them go, and his ability to play make not only for himself and for others is really important. And going against a Mick Cronin team that the game is going to be really physical. So we're I mean, obviously we haven't even talked about Sky Clark and what he's able to do. So they're a really good team. And, they got some guys who are playing with a great deal of confidence and playing at a high level right now. And it tests your defense. They test your defense certainly for an entirety of a game because they have so many different guys who are capable of scoring. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.